Hello, thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit about reports today, um, mainly a specific report that is what I think the most useful and valuable report that you should be looking at every week as an owner or general manager of a firm in our industry. This is our executive dashboard. We've got all kinds of reports that for profitability, system reports, project information, general human resource types of information. We've got lab reports. We've got labor efficiency types of reports. We've got equipment types of reports. And we got a lot of project manager administrative reports also. And there's one of them hidden in here that is far and away the most useful report that I think every owner should have in front of them every week and in their project managers meeting. And let's just take a look at this real quick and see why it might be so useful. This is a project status by manager. So here's all of your project managers and each of the different projects that they're working on. And of course, this is dummy data, so worry about that. It's going to look a little wonky sometimes, but that's just fine. Here we've got the client, we've got the budgeted amount, we've got the invoiced amount, how much is to be invoiced right now. This is the accrued amount. This is how much is been spent essentially on the project so far today, and that includes how much we've invoiced and how much is waiting to be invoiced. And then we have a percentage for that. And then this is where the real fun comes in that we always wish we had, but it's hard to come up with a good cost number and a profitability number on each of these projects that we have going. And the reason is because we've got to have budget integrity to be able to do that. We've got to be able to have some basis for which we can estimate the cost as the project is in progress. Obviously we've throughout history, we've always kind of waited for the accounting system to give us some idea of how much a project actually cost, but we usually don't get that information until the project is all completely finished. We've invoiced the last invoice, and another several weeks later, there might be a report comes out of an accounting system that gives you some idea of, well, did we make money on this project or not? The real value comes if you can get some cost information during the course of the project so you can make adjustments as needed. And that's where this report really comes in handy. Cost comes in from these two numbers up here. General overhead, labor burden costs get applied to numbers that we actually know we're going to be spending or what it costs us to do the work. Let's look a little bit about why these two numbers up here are so important. The general overhead and labor burden, and where do we get those and how do they make a difference in us? What we do is we go look at our previous years and roughly get a good idea of what our burden and our general overhead are. And then we can apply those in an hour by hour basis or on a test by test basis. And so what we look for is, okay, for the entire year, what did we spend on actual wages that got paid? And then we look at what is the burden for those wages. These are the taxes, the vacation, the benefits and things that come along with the wages that are extra expenses that you make. And if you look at your accounting appropriately, you can come up with a really good idea of exactly what the percentage of your overall revenue for that year got spent on burden. Then you look at general overhead, which is everything else we've got to do to keep the lights on, the rent, utilities, the equipment, overhead, administrative support staff. All of those things are general overhead, and whatever's left over is profit. And we take that same concept and we put it against every billable hour. Here we've got a typical billable hour of $100 just to make it simple. How much did we actually pay this guy in wages for that hour of work? What was the burden? We take the same percentages over here, apply it times the wage, and then we can do the same thing with general overhead once we've got this rate in there, and come up with a pretty good idea of what how much profit we made on every hour that we billed for our billable people. And then we look at our billed items like tests, where we don't bill an hour, but we can still go in and look at a proctor test, for example. How much wages did we spend to do a particular proctor? And we can get a pretty good idea of how many hours typically of a lab technician time goes into generating a proctor test. Then we can take those same numbers, the burden, the general overhead, come up with good profit numbers. As we're going through the project for every test that we do, every hour of work that we bill, we can get a pretty good idea how that's going to work for us. And that's where these cost numbers come. So these two percentages right here are critical that we work on. The other thing that we provide for you is some feedback as to where are we potentially not being efficient with how we spend our money as we should be. So we look at concessions. This is a concept that most people haven't even considered. Concessions are what we call situations where we lose money on a particular billing item or hour of work that got done. And quantity concessions are when we put in so many hours, we go out in the field and we're out there 5 hours on the construction site, but we can only bill for 3 of them. That's a concession based on the quantity of hours that we can do. A rate concession is when we've got to use an expensive person to go out and do the work that we only budgeted for a low-level field technician to go out and do densities, but we don't have anybody available. So we have to send a senior engineer out to do those densities. That's our rate concession because we've got an expensive guy doing work that a less expensive person should be doing. The other concession that we have, of course, is an overtime concession where you've got to pay your people overtime, but you can't bill that overtime to your client for whatever reason. So those concessions get lined out here to give your project managers an idea of, well, why is it that we're maybe not being as profitable on this project as we are the other project? And we can look and see, well, we've got concessions that we've been fighting on these particular projects. And we have good feedback all the way through as to what these things ought to be. So anyway, this is the report that I wish I had for, the first 30 years of my engineering experience out there. And in the hollow, this all comes for free. And we hope you'll get the same value out of it that we have. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.